In this episode, you walk away with inspiration, motivation, and implementation with Genius Network and Strategic Coach alumni, Doug Andrew. Doug is a New York Times bestselling author, the founder and owner of Paramount Financial Services, and an experienced retirement planning advisor and financial strategist. Recorded live from the Genius Network event. If you would like access to the full feature video presentation, the special resources, and the show notes for this episode, please visit 10xtalk.com/112. That's 10xtalk.com/112.
Our next presenter is a 25K member who's awesome. He's a driver. He gets things done. He implements. And he's this all-around enthusiastic and just a freaking great guy. His name's Doug Andrews. He's a New York Times and Wall Street Journal bestselling author and president of Paramount Financial Services. Doug helps people find their misfortune through his trademark wealth transformation strategies. His books along the Misfortune series. His talk is going to be inspiration to motivation to implementation. How to get a 10 times return on every 25K meeting on your $25,000 membership investment. So I am extraordinarily looking forward to this one. So give it up for Doug Andrews. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Yes, thank you.
You betcha.
Appreciate it.
Okay. I want to start out here with an exercise based on what Peter shared with us this morning. First of all, just 6 days ago, my wife, Sherry, who is with me, and her 84-year-old mother, who's never been to New York before, we were in Sturgis, and so this is us 6 days ago. We actually conduct a foundation called Learning Curves, where we take dentists from all over the planet, and we do philanthropic things to do dentistry in Dominican Republic and build hospitals in Nepal, and we teach continuing education every night. So Sturgis was alive and well this year, and it was great. So it's good to be here in New York. We started out today talking about, with Peter, exponential growth versus linear growth. Now, I have a sheet of paper, and if I fold it in half, and I fold it in half one more time. And imagine with me that I could fold this sheet of paper in half 48 more times, a total of 50 times. Now, if I could do that in some form of measurement, millimeters, centimeters, inches, yards, miles, how thick would this piece of paper be if I could fold it over 48 more times? How many? What's this doing every time I fold it in half? It is doubling. If I fold it over 25 times, it's already 2.79 miles thick. If I could fold it over 50 times, it's 93 million miles high. It's from here to the sun. In other words, if I could fold it over 51 times, it would be from here to the sun and back. So that was the message really this morning of exponential growth. If we talk about 18 holes of golf, how many golfers in the room? And if we were to bet 25 cents on the first hole and we doubled our bet for 18 holes, the 18th hole bet would be over $32,000. In a patch of lily pads, in a lake, let's say the patch doubles in size every day, and if it takes 48 days for the patch to cover the entire lake, how many days will it take for the patch to cover half the lake? 47 days, because it accomplishes on the last compounding everything all of the other periods combined accomplish. Okay? So these are some, Albert Einstein said that a compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. So, in 10 times, which is what Dan Sullivan is anxious for us to do, $1, 10 times, and goes to 10 to 100 the next 5 years. If you do this in 5 years, which 60% growth does, and I think there's like 70-something companies that are doing this, right, Dan? In 30 years, you will be doing 1 million times what you were doing 30 years earlier at a 60% growth rate. In my business, where I talk about money as a financial strategist, $1 doubling every period over 20 periods will grow to $1 million if it's tax-free. If it's taxed as earned, you'll only have $27,000. So that's why Rothschild said compounding in a tax-free environment is the eighth wonder of the world. Now, what I want to talk about is how to be a possibility thinker. When you come to an event like this, you need to attain the best possible by seeking the impossible. Many people throw up roadblocks when they hear a presenter give an idea, and you need to attain the best possible by thinking of the possibilities. What would you attempt to do if you knew you could not fail. I think Robert Schuller is the first one I heard say that. Different isn't always better, but better is always different. And so if you keep doing what you've always done, you're going to keep getting what you've always gotten, right? And so what I do when I go to a presentation, I sit back and I am open-minded to new ideas that may even seem a little counterintuitive. Next, I would recommend you suspend your disbelief until the presenter makes their case. And then third, withhold justifying why you may not be doing certain things right now. Quit throwing up roadblocks and be a possibility thinker, because today is the first day of the rest of your life. Now, you can always tell where somebody's at by where they're at, financially, spiritually, physically. But as Dan Sullivan says, all progress begins by telling the truth to yourself. So hopefully at events like this, you've got to get very clear on where you're at in your business, in your life, physically, financially, spiritually, and then get very clear on where you're wanting to go. Listen to the speakers and the presenters and figure out how you're going to use those tools to get there. So this is what I do. As I sit in this room, I ask myself, okay, is what I'm hearing a true principle? Number two, what strategies and or concepts are being taught or shared that I could adapt and use in my particular set of circumstances? Whoops. And let me go back there to the previous one. And then what tools can I use that will help me implement the idea? Dr. Edwards Deming, who's the total quality management engineer that transformed Japan to the quality they put out today, said 85% of any result is determined in the first 15% of the process. So you want to set down specific goals or vision, which stands for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant in a time frame. So what I do is at the end of a session like tonight and tomorrow, I will circle the 3 biggest ideas I want to implement that will have the greatest impact. Then I calendar the time I'm going to do it before I get home. Then I get in motion, add value, and I use Dan Sullivan's 80% approach. And I only invest a couple of hours and I assign it to my project manager. So the tools that I love to use, Dan's, Joe's, Robert Cooper's, I'm going to talk about them, and then I'm going to share with you quickly 3 presentations at $25K that made me $250,000 over to $1 million of new revenue this year, okay? The Impact Filter, Strategy Circle, and DOS worksheet. I can't afford not to invest in Strategic Coach. I hope you're getting that message. See, I do the impact filter on every idea that I circle, and then I go through and I engage in a strategy circle. Dan showed that today. Whoops. And then I go through the DOS exercise, and I think of my ideal customers, what's their biggest dangers I need to eliminate, what are the greatest opportunities I need to seize from this $25K event, and then what are the strengths or resources that I'm going to use? The most powerful tool I have ever learned from Dan. So in my practice on my national radio show, I teach people how to avoid the dangers of taxes, inflation, and market volatility. And so I have a national radio show where I address all of these dangers, and then I show the audience the greatest opportunities that they need to seize. And by the way, you can get a copy of this presentation when I'm done. I can email it to you. And then I go through and I show them after the opportunities the greatest strengths, liquidity, safety of principal, and rate of return. And what I'm doing is I'm solving my ideal customer's DOS. Joe Polish has taught us that we should use the ideas worth $250,000, the elegant idea page. You circle your top 3. You also do the elegant ideas besides the 250, and then the genius network I fill out every time we have an event like this. And so Robert Cooper, raise your hand, Robert, he's here. He taught me how to do brief and brilliant, practical essence, immediately useful 3-minute brevs is his branding. To always ask myself, what's possible? Who are we missing? What's the smallest change that will have the greatest impact? And how to arm your recommenders to easily defend with pride why they engaged with you. I was missing half of the opportunity to get our recommenders to easily refer. I shared that with Dan and also with Joe, and they have incorporated this in their businesses right now. So the message is this, and this is what a brev is. It's a brief and brilliant message. Now, there's not a lack of information in the world. There's a dearth of people's time and attention. Content is king, but only if your ideal client can find it and use it. So I listened to Brendan Burchard last year in New York and went home and recorded 154 new videos and developed my own integrated product suite. I listened to Dean Graziosi. Dean, are you here? I don't know if he's in the room. And I went home, and within 2 weeks, I drove up the canyon, got a GoPro camera, stuck it on my dashboard, and recorded an off-the-cuff infomercial because of what Dean showed me. And then Mike Koenig's presentation, I'll show you at the end of how to make it very easy. So this is what happened. I went home and created an abundant living library that looks like this. And we sell these 5 different modules, $2,400, $1,200, $1,200, $900, $1,500. This is what I was doing before I joined 25K, a nice model where we were making $10 million a year. But after coming to the 25K, the items in green on Clarity Retreats, which I hold 22 a year, we make a $10 million a year with Clarity Retreats. We made an extra $1 million in the last 12 months. That green revenue came because of Brendan Burchard's one idea. Made $1 million from that, okay? And so, thank you, Brendan. Where's Brendan in the room? Yeah. The key is just do it. Don't wait for all the lights to turn green before taking off. Write it, record it, okay? Print it, send it, just do it. Do the 80% that Dan teaches us about. When a bee goes about collecting nectar, it cross-pollinates the botanicals. And so what happens is strategic byproducts that Dan Sullivan talks about brings us into a whole realm of new surprises. You have to be in motion and add value for this to happen. So let me show you something real quick, and this is very powerful. I want you to watch this close. See if you got my message. What you do in an event like this is you have an open mind. So in this magic coloring book, there is nothing in here. I don't want any preconceived ideas, okay? But by the end of today, hopefully you've got a new vision, some images of a brighter future for you, right? So then your coloring book's going to start looking like this, and it'll start having an image in there. But see, it won't be until tomorrow at 6 o'clock. If you do what I'm telling you, you'll have a new, bright, colorful future, and your coloring book of your amazing future will now look like this, okay? Now, let's see if you learned something. How many of you can immediately think of a way to adapt that working metaphor in some lesson you teach? I will gift you one of these, okay? Now, those are the people who are understanding how to adapt the concept. Thank you, Joe, for having me.